Simon Cowell has spent decades as one of television's most recognizable talent judges, known for a blunt, unsentimental style that rarely cracks under pressure. Viewers have come to expect sharp critiques delivered with little emotion, which is exactly why it was so jarring when he was later seen visibly moved while discussing Susan Boyle. Her path from an unknown singer in a small Scottish town to a household name had already captivated audiences. But the story behind that transformation runs deeper than a single viral clip. It touches on resilience, quiet compassion, and a moment that revealed an unexpectedly human side of a man built up as untouchable. Cowell's reputation for toughness has always been part of his brand. So he broke down while reflecting on Susan Boyle's journey, long after her original audition had already made headlines. It stood out precisely because it happened years later, not in the heat of the moment. That timing suggested his feelings about her story had only deepened over time. What seemed to affect him most wasn't just a memory of her voice, but a fuller picture of what she had endured both before and after fame found her. In the interview where this happened, Cowell described watching an extraordinary journey unfold, one built on hope, hardship, and quiet endurance. His emotion in that moment reflected the weight of having witnessed someone's private life spill into public view and everything that came with it. He has said that Susan's story affected him unlike almost any other contestant he has judged. It wasn't simply her singing that stayed with him, but her courage and her persistence in the face of real difficulty. For someone who has watched thousands of hopefuls come and go, she represented something rare. A reminder that extraordinary things can come from ordinary, even overlooked, places. His tears carried both pride in what she had accomplished and sorrow for what it cost her, a mix rooted in genuine empathy rather than performance. Fans and commentators alike noted how sincere the moment felt. A judge whose job depends on emotional distance had let his guard down, if only briefly, showing a side of him rarely seen on camera. Someone capable of feeling deeply and recognizing that no talent competition can fully capture the complexity of a person's life. It served as a reminder that success is rarely simple, and that fame often carries burdens the audience never sees. What struck people wasn't so much what Cowell said, but the sincerity behind it, a mix of admiration for her talent and sadness over the private struggles she had kept hidden. It was a rare glimpse of authenticity from someone whose job usually requires composure, and it appeared to strengthen the bond between him and Boyle, who has spoken about how much his reaction meant to her. That moment also validated, in a very public way, the mental health challenges that so often accompany sudden fame, something audiences don't always consider when they see someone become a star overnight. It reminded viewers that behind the polish of the entertainment industry are real people carrying real emotional weight, and it opened space for broader conversations about empathy and the private cost of public life. To understand why that moment resonated so strongly, it helps to look back at where Susan Boyle came from. She was born and raised in Blackburn, West Lothian, in Scotland, in a working-class family with several siblings, and her early life was shaped by hardship that many people could relate to, even if few would later see it play out on a world stage. She loved music from a young age, but her opportunities to pursue it were limited by both her family's circumstances and the social environment around her. As a child, she was diagnosed with learning difficulties, which led to misunderstandings and unfair judgments from people around her. Those early challenges affected her schooling and her social life, often leaving her feeling like an outsider. Rather than discouraging her, though, they seemed to sharpen a quiet determination to prove her worth through both her talent and her character. Boyle's personality was shy and reserved, and combined with life in a small town, it meant she spent much of her youth largely unnoticed. Her love of singing remained a private passion rather than a public ambition. She spent years volunteering for charitable causes and living modestly, with no real expectation that a world stage awaited her. Despite her quiet nature, she nurtured a genuine love of musical theater and classical music throughout her life, performing locally and singing in her church, all the while developing her voice away from any spotlight. Those small performances were a source of comfort in a life that was, at times, marked by isolation. Her family also went through significant hardship. Both of her parents experienced declining health, and she took on the responsibility of caring for them as they aged. That period shaped her resilience and her humility in ways that would carry into her later life. In many ways, her story became defined by two intertwined threads: real talent, and an ability to find meaning in beauty even amid daily struggle. Because of the stigma often attached to learning difficulties, many people underestimated her before ever hearing her sing. Her later success became especially meaningful because it directly challenged those assumptions, not just about her, but about people with disabilities and unconventional life paths more broadly. For most of her adult life, she prioritized her family's needs over her own ambitions, living an unremarkable, private existence right up until the night that changed everything. That period of her life also included quiet struggles with her mental health, which she would only discuss publicly much later, a part of her story that adds depth well beyond her identity as an entertainer. Ultimately, her early life illustrates how someone can rise from a background that offered little advantage, using nothing but persistence and character to eventually reach an entirely different kind of life. The humility and endurance she built during those quiet years became the very foundation that allowed her now famous audition to land with such force. When Susan Boyle stepped onto the stage for her audition on Britain's Got Talent in 2009, expectations in the room were low, shaped almost entirely by her appearance. She walked out in a simple dress, wearing glasses, looking nothing like the audience's idea of a star, and the visible skepticism and murmuring in the crowd reflected just how easily she'd been underestimated before she'd sung a single note. Then she began singing I Dreamed a Dream from Les Miserables, and the mood in the room changed almost instantly. Her powerful, emotionally rich voice stunned everyone present, the judges, the audience, and eventually millions of viewers around the world. The gap between her unassuming appearance and scale of her talent created one of the most memorable surprises in reality television history. Cowell, known for blunt and often harsh feedback, was visibly caught off guard. He later admitted he simply wasn't prepared for the emotional wave her performance unleashed. The standing ovation and the visible emotion in the room that night made clear this was more than just a strong audition. It was a genuinely transformative moment for everyone watching. The reaction spread quickly once footage of the audition went online, racking up millions of views and prompting conversations about first impressions, talent, and the dangers of judging people based on appearance. Boyle became, almost overnight, a symbol of hope, proof that authenticity and genuine skill could cut through assumptions and stereotypes. Even as the media rushed to label her an overnight sensation, she remained remarkably grounded, and that humility only deepened public affection for her. People saw in her a triumph not just of voice, but of character and perseverance. For Cowell personally, that night marked a turning point in how he approached his role as a judge. It reinforced something he has repeated since, that the entertainment business is as much about heart and personal story as it is about polish and technical skill. Boyle's audition forced a reconsideration of what it actually means to be a star, pushing back against the industry's often superficial standards. That single performance set her on a path toward global success, including strong album sales and international touring, but also introduced pressures that would test her emotionally and physically in ways nobody could have predicted at the time. Over time, the relationship between Cowell and Boyle grew into something more layered than the standard judge and contestant dynamic. What started as genuine surprise on his part evolved into real respect and, eventually, something resembling a supportive friendship. He became, by many accounts, more than an evaluator of talent, a kind of confidant who took a personal interest in how she was faring. Cowell has spoken about the authenticity Boyle brought into an industry usually defined by polish and image, describing her presence as a reminder of the value of vulnerability in a culture often built around image management. For her part, Boyle has said that Cowell's early praise and continued support were meaningful during a period when she was adjusting to a completely different kind of life. Their bond, as both have described it, carried elements of mentorship as well as genuine personal care, something viewers don't often get to see from a judge known primarily for his critiques. Boyle's sudden rise brought challenges that went well beyond her voice. She found herself under intense media and public scrutiny almost overnight, without the years most performers spend gradually building a public profile. That sudden exposure amplified struggles she had likely carried quietly for years, testing her emotional resilience in new ways. Some media coverage focused more on her appearance or personal quirks than her talent, adding an extra layer of strain to an already overwhelming transition. Cowell has acknowledged watching this unfold and recognizing the toll it took on her. His role shifted at times from judge to something closer to protector, as he expressed concern about the impact fame could have on someone naturally private and reserved. Boyle herself has spoken candidly about anxiety and the strange duality of the spotlight, exhilarating in some ways, isolating in others. That honesty helped normalize conversations about mental health in an industry that doesn't always encourage them, and it highlighted a broader truth. Talent alone doesn't protect anyone from the harder realities of fame. Boyle's story also includes health and personal challenges that rarely made headlines the way her singing did. She has spoken openly about living with Asperger's syndrome, a diagnosis that came later in her life, and helped her make sense of social difficulties she'd experienced growing up, even as it added new complexity to navigating public life. The sensory demands and unpredictability of the entertainment world were, by her own account, often overwhelming. Yet she continued to pursue her music regardless. Her openness about the condition has been credited with helping reduce stigma and encouraging wider conversations about neurodiversity. She has also dealt with physical health issues, including a lung infection that forced her to pause work for a period, and she experienced the loss of both of her parents, whose care had shaped so much of her earlier life. Throughout these difficulties, she tended to keep her personal struggles private, leaning on close friends rather than public support. In later years, she became more selective about which performances and appearances she took on, prioritizing her health and well-being over a packed schedule, a shift many fans came to see as a model of self-awareness rather than a step back. Susan Boyle's rise and Simon Cowell's emotional response to her story left a lasting impression well beyond the world of talent shows. She became more than a singer with an unforgettable voice. She became a symbol for people who feel overlooked or underestimated, challenging assumptions about age, appearance, and what success is supposed to look like. In doing so, she helped remind audiences that real talent can surface in the most unexpected places. Cowell's visible emotion, meanwhile, changed how many viewers saw him. It offered proof that even someone known for detachment and sharp judgment could be moved by a genuine human story, and it opened a window into the real experiences, struggles, and ambitions behind performances he critiques for a living. Boyle's willingness to speak candidly about her own challenges helped create space for broader conversations about mental health and about accepting people as they are rather than as the industry expects them to be. Together, their story serves as a reminder not to rush to judgment based on first impressions. The most remarkable stories, it turns out, often come from the most unlikely beginnings, and can take real courage on both sides of the stage to let that story be told honestly